way too long. Everything is such a mess, and the pain too strong. You should fix me, tell me what to do. How'd I keep them on shaking? Hey, I never knew there's work to do after waking. I've been asking for the truth, but come to find, come to tell me what to do. How'd I keep it from shaking? Hey, I never knew there's work to do after breaking. I've been asking for the truth, but come to find, come to find, come to find, I don't want it to be true. Don't want it to be true. Don't want it to be. All right, welcome, friends, family, patrons, to this month's song release. Man, I'm so pumped for just this evening and the special guests that we have. So I'm not gonna have a long intro. We're gonna skip the monthly vinyl. We're gonna skip the monthly drink. I don't have anything to tell you about that's coming up. We're just gonna focus on the guests and this song tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on screen David Morckel and Jonathan Kampfe. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Our pleasure.
Glad to be.
So some of you may not know that David and Jonathan and I were Phillip Fox Band. Like the three of us, we had different people come and go and share the stage with us, but like we were the core. And we did that for years, 5 years, maybe six 6 years, 6 years,
Almost exactly.
Well, we disbanded in March of 2017. I know that, so we'd have to work the dates back. But yeah, man, I mean, we shared hundreds and hundreds of shows together, more hours than any of us, I think, care to count in the stinky old Chevy Express van. And we're coming here today because we resurrected a song. So I don't know. Is that enough of a launch point? Any of you guys want to jump in?
Yeah, it's resurrected. We were just talking about it. Was it the last song we ever worked on, or was it just in the group of last songs that we were working on? Or?
Definitely in the group. Where it was in the order, I don't know. But yeah, there was a
we were pretty methodical about writing new songs, and yeah, we had a schedule.
Yeah, well, the first two albums, we kind of just pulled writing backlog from my catalog. We just it was Phillip Fox Band. I had songs, everybody kind of added their piece to it, and then we would go and record those albums. But after the 5-6 years together, you guys had stuff to offer, and we really wanted to make sure that that next album that we did was going to be like an actual band album and not just like a songwriter with a band kind of a deal. And so that's actually the story behind this song, right? Like this song started with you, right, David?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna get much out of you here, am I?
Yeah, I remember. It was interesting because you were talking about how we were sort of knew how to write songs together at this point, right? And what I remember specifically from this song is wanting to like come up with a guitar part that wasn't just a screaming guitar solo or like some
Mm,
like I wanted to be part of the rhythm section, you know. So it was like I was trying to figure out how to do that the best way that I could in general and in this configuration. Um, so it was more about like simplifying and coming up with chords that sound good with specific tones that work well with Phillip, and um, yeah, it was just kind of a different approach than what we had been doing for so long, which
mm.
was just
I don't know that I
leads.
ever heard. I mean, maybe you did explain that at one point when we were writing it, but that makes so much sense because when I found the pre-production recording that we made 7+ years ago, um, the way all of the parts fit together was just so beautiful. And you actually wrote the drum part for this song. And when I hired a friend of mine in town, Ben Anderson, who's a studio drummer, I like sent him the tracks and then had him record the drums at his place, and he sent them back to me. And I was very specific. I was like, this is basically the drum part. Like, I need you to play this because this is what David wrote. I think David might have lost his internet connection.
Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh. Um, but yeah, the pieces and parts all fit together so nicely that when I stumbled upon this recording, um, I was like, man, it's such a shame that the song's it's right here. It just needs like a little love, and the world could hear it. You know.
Yeah, we had what, 6 or 7 songs that were similar in production level and I would say quality. Um, that was one of the disappointing things about when we kind of called it quits. Is it was all of the things in the queue, you know, because we were getting to that point as a band. We were just actually really con- like the members were contributing more than Phillip just like, hey, I've got this song, let's see what we can do with it. Um, so that it's really cool that you took the time to resurrect the song and you know essentially finish it. So kudos.
Thanks. I feel like we were talking before we got on. When we wrote this song, to David's point, like it was a how do we all fit together, on this recording. And like David sounds like David and I sound like me and you sounded like you, Jonathan. And I did my best to in some ways it feels a bit like an homage, particularly in like where I mean, clearly you'll hear there's a difference. Like I can't play lead guitar the way David played lead guitar. I spoke to some of the ideas you threw in the pre-production, but what I miss so much about playing with you guys was our harmonies and the way that our three voices blended together. And so when I was
We
going
worked
back,
on it.
a ton.
Naturally.
All those stairwells at Old Crow, warming up before
Yeah.
our 4:45s from 9 to 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was just so great the
Good
way
stuff.
that the timbre of our three voices, Jonathan would go underneath, I'd be in the middle, and David would go on top, and it was just like, it's just fills so nicely. And I couldn't replicate that on this recording. I mean, there's 4-part harmonies on each of those parts. And even so, it's like, there's a part of me that's just like, oh man, it's not quite the same,
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, but it really did. I think we worked really hard at making our voices blend, and you know, compromising different timbres that we felt naturally for making the whole sound.
Yep.
It was definitely my first experience with that kind of thing, with my voice at least. Um, yeah, Jonathan, you taught me a lot about blending voices together that I never really took seriously before that.
Thanks, man. I just remember in the studio, Phillip, you probably recall this. We're working on Motor City Blood, and I'm laying down, harmonies for the first time, and we're listening to her like, I don't know, dude, that's a little rough. And then we put it with your voice, and it's like, whoa, okay, I see where this is going. It fits, like, don't listen to it by itself. It's horrible. But in the context,
yes. Yeah, that was a huge lesson. Don't listen to the backing vocals by themselves.
Yeah, no, that's the thing too, is like, I don't know, did you guys ever see that documentary? We're getting a little off topic, but like, was it like 20 Feet from Fame or something like that? It's like a whole documentary about backing vocalists for like really famous artists. And it really is an art to just kind of like come up underneath the primary vocal and just fill everything out and be tight, and not only with the harmonies and tune, but also, like you said, timbre, and another step, articulation of like the consonants, as often the case, not articulating the consonants and letting the lead vocalist grab those, and you're just kind of singing like you've got marbles in your mouth.
Yep. Yeah, I remember many times when we were working on a harmony, it was also like where are you placing that vowel? Like, are you placing the vowel in the back of your throat? Are you placing it like up here? Are you placing it on the front of your mouth? Because like you could be right on pitch, but if it wasn't like, it's this whole weird like you said, compromise game of the whole thing has to sound good. It doesn't matter whether any one of us is hitting the pitch or not,
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked a ton about this song, so hopefully the listeners can, appreciate a bit of what's going on. So let's listen to it all together, and then we'll come back and we'll dig into the song even more. Sound good? All right, cool. Here we go, guys. This month's song, being resurrected after 7 years, Shine. Oh man,
Nice.
I wish you all could have seen Jonathan's stank face. Like I can see both of them while while
You
the
see
song's
that?
playing.
Yes.
Oh wow.
I was pretending to be Phillip there at the end. I was going,
Yeah, I was thinking about
So
how
good.
do we end this song? Because we in the pre-production we did a trash can ending, but like we used to end a lot of songs like that live. We would just kind of do this like it'd all go crazy and everyone would be singing and I was like, it felt fitting to just like end the recording that way.
Totally. That was fun.
Super fun, man. I so appreciate you guys helping bring this song into the world. Before we jump in, and I've just so much I want to talk about with this tune. I have to say, I want you both to know that the world record holders of the most states attending a Phillip Fox Band show are on the broadcast tonight.
Hey.
Do you remember who this is?
Hey. Well, I already got a message from one of them, I think. Angie Brenneman Hill.
Yes.
Let's go.
Angie and Dusty. They're on.
Yeah.
And they say,
Thanks for watching, guys.
we have the biggest smiles on our faces. Appreciate you guys.
Oh, sweet.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Seriously.
so where do we want to start? Do you want to talk about the writing of this song? Do you want to start there?
Yeah. I want to talk about the recording too, because I want to know what guitars I'm listening to and gear I'm listening to.
For sure. We can start there. Work our way backwards.
Yeah, rig rundown.
Okay, rig rundowns. So, again, it's just so fascinating that you said at the top that originally when you were writing this song, David, you were thinking about like the parts that we each played in the band and how to like write a song that all of that stuff just kind of glued together. Sorry. Yeah, me being real. And so like for the right channel electric guitar, that's my old Les Paul that I played in the band, into the Mesa Boogie Electrodyne, which I definitely was playing when we did the pre-production because it was my rig for like the last 6-8 months of the band. And then I basically running that through a Sparkle drive, straight into that white box 212 loaded with a vintage 30 and like a 1980s C90. So, but I think I only threw one mic on that, so I don't remember if that was the C90 or the vintage 30. But that's the right channel. So that's basically like my rig from when we were doing pre-production. And then you always played the Telly. I mean, that was like your primary guitar, and then you had like a bunch of other guitars that you like swapped in and out for songs. But like that was kind of like our sound. Was I played Les Paul and like just had the girthiness, and then you played Telly and popped over the top and did all the sparkle. So I have a Telecaster, played the Telly into an AC-15. I don't actually have a Fender amp, which would have been that would have been going the full homage if I had pulled out a Fender, but yeah, I ran that into an AC-15 basically straight, and that was the left channel guitar. And then Jonathan actually tracked the bass, and so he could talk about that.
Yeah. Well, your guitars like were definitely very distinct, and then you could I could totally tell like the Telly was just that sort of I don't like the connotations, but it's like it was like harsh, a little bit ice picky tone. When then I almost thought that I was listening to the Casino for the right channel guitar because of how full bodied it was by contrast. But that makes sense. It would be the Les Paul. I should know the difference, but anyway, no. So you'll appreciate this, Dave. I was using some Black Country Customs pedals by Laney. Yeah, Black Country Custom. So when we did the pre-production, do you remember that old through neck 4-string Oakland bass that I had?
The heavy one?
With like the the heavy one with the mysterious tone knob that like us had like 6 different selector positions. Super weird.
Yeah.
So that guitar, I was using like the sort of distorted switch, for lack of a better word, for the pre-production. So I kind of needed to figure out how I was going to come close to that tone, because I actually sold that guitar to Phillip for his studio use. He was so happy. But I was using my Mexi J Deluxe with the Black Country Customs Custard Factory, which is their compression pedal for bass. It's just gorgeous. I used Phillip, you can tell me, how much of the sub octave did you use, if any?
None. The
You
song
didn't?
was so
Okay.
full as it was. They're
Yeah,
just like,
I
yeah,
didn't
there just
think I
was.
heard anything,
Yep.
so I had that in parallel just in case he wanted it, and then I also had for the distortion they have a pedal. I had to look it up. It's called a Blackheath for bass distortion. Um, but yeah, man, still using my Little Mark 3 bass head, and I mic'd the cab with the AT25, but I also ran DI and then sub bass, and then I'm trying to think. Oh, just straight DI, like in front of everything. So he had 4 different channels to work with, and then pretty nice blend overall. But it was just fun to do that, because this project was the first remote bass recording that I've done. I've done a little bit of remote cello recording, but as Phillip can attest, like being able to record myself and send tracks back and forth, like this is, for me personally, not having been much of a gearhead growing up and not having much of a technical background, like this is an accomplishment. Like, and it took 4-5 years to get to this point, between like just having the equipment and then having it work. and thanks to Phillip, there's lots of stories I could tell. I'm still using Vegas as my primary DAW, but I've upgraded from 9 to 17. So yeah, there's like, I think I'm still 5 versions back now. So anywho, but my whole point is, like, I was very proud of myself to like be able to take the pre-production part, which I thought was pretty good. There were a few flubs here and there, but actually like work on it, refine it, and then, be able to send it off to Phillip to be a part of this song, which obviously brought back a lot of fond memories. And I always enjoyed this song in particular, from the new batch of tunes that we were working on.
Yeah, I would have never known that was your first remote recording work, man, because it was super clean. Super clean.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. I don't know about the drum stuff. Ben Anderson recorded all the drums on the stuff at his place. I know it was a challenge to try. I don't know how we were miking drums on that pre-production recording. The drums on the pre-production recording just sat right in the mix in this kind of like 70s kind of vibe. And try as hard as I could, all of our tracks were just higher fidelity than those pre-production recordings. And so even with me like stripping things back and EQing things out and like running them through, old console emulators, and like, it was just still like, wow, this song sounds bigger than the pre-production. And so I'm just going to have to work with that. I'm just going to have to work with the tones that we have and like make it a cohesive unit. And so the drums ended up being a bit more present and definitely like grittier on this recording than they did in the pre-production. But the part is like, maybe except for a fill or two, is basically like what was on the pre-production recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, I'm interested in your takeaways, in particular about like the drum parts, but also just like how everything kind of came together, just in terms of how the parts are fitting together. Like, what's your reaction?
I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. It sounds awesome. It's catchy. Um, I don't know how much I contributed lyrically.
Mm.
Philip, do you have any? I don't think I contributed anything because whenever I think back on it, I'm like, yeah, all I brought in was a guitar part.
I
And
my memory.
I remember getting a draft back from you that was like, man, that's why he does that. That's why that's his job. Wow. Like how just,
I
yeah.
want to say, and I remember writing like the main lyrics for this song, and I'll tell that story in a second. But I want to say that you came in with the idea for the hook as well. The sun ain't lost its shine. I think that was the package that you came in with.
The melody as well, or just the words?
No, just the words.
Okay. So that's all it was. It was just
I I
guitar parts and words.
I think for sure the idea of the sun ain't lost its shine and that being coupled with this song did not originate with me.
Okay.
So I'm intuiting a little bit here, but like you coming with the guitar part, and that drum beat, and then at the very least the idea of like, to me this song is talking about like something, the sun ain't lost its shine or something like that. So I remember writing this song. We were coming home from a gig. I think it was a run of shows because we were actually driving like in the morning, but not 5 a.m. in the morning. So, there were a lot of those like pulling in at 5 a.m., which, so, I'm in the van and I'm listening to whatever we had laid down. I think maybe we had like written the music of the song first, or at least like done a pass at it. And so I'm listening to that and, just very kind of like in the moment, right? Like writing this song about what we were all experiencing and what I personally felt like I was needing at that time, So, like the song kind of walks you through like, it's dawn, I'm pulling in, another day is at an end. And it's just that feeling of like, you're always off beat with everybody, like you're pulling in and going to bed when everyone else is getting up. But then there's this period where you're home and you're like, man, I'd love to like see people, the people that I love, and talk to them, but they're asleep. And like, just that whole thing and that wrestling with like the world's awake and you want to be with the world, but not, you have to like sleep because you're a human being and you already don't get enough of that as it is. So there was like, that's the first verse. And then the second verse was, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but toward the end, just with like the sleep deprivation and the flop sweat of recognizing like, shoot, man, like we tried and this just isn't working. I just felt like I was on edge all the time. And so that line about been feeling like a gun, loud and scaring everyone. And yet like the hook of this chorus, this is why I think, actually thinking about it now, the reason this song like pulled me back in when I came across it earlier this year, was because it was such a healing song at the time. Like it was like, yeah, all of these things are true, and the wind still moves the pines, the sun ain't lost its shine.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a great line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember getting that line back the first time we ever communicated about the song and just being like, man, he just nails it.
For
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's when the lyrics and the whole vibe of the song line up that way, there's something powerful that happens. So I'm curious, do you remember like what the initial ideas for this song? Like, where did that come out of? Where were you? Like, what prompted that? Do you remember?
I think it's a lot of the same thing that you're talking about. Just getting home, with the sun coming up and realizing that you're not going to be able to experience that next day. Like that feeling is the same thing that I was thinking when I was writing that song. I can speak to it a lot more musically because I didn't get too deep lyrically, right? Um, yeah, musically it was about feeling like I by this point coming up with lead lines and lead guitar parts and coming up with tones to fit those parts wasn't challenging anymore, and it didn't feel like that's the direction that we were going, to just continue to be that kind of standard formula. Um, and I wanted to figure out how to be part of the rhythm section and how to make the most out of a position within the rhythm section. Um, so it was a lot about chord voicing and tone, and um, also the simplicity of what could happen when we're both playing the same thing, right? The same chords, and molding the tone of the two guitars around that, or the voicings of the chords around that, and really just kind of owning that approach to it. It was just something. I felt like at that time I was thinking that in that way. Whenever I was sitting down to play something new, I was thinking more like big unison chords, whereas previously it was like just something pretty over the top of what Phillip's doing. That makes
Man,
sense.
I love how, I mean, maybe again, I don't remember all of it. Maybe we talked about that, but I love how the music communicated that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like on its own, the music communicates that. And then the lyrics just kind of followed suit with it. I also love how, and I didn't realize this until I was mixing the song, how much unison there is between the bass guitar and the kick drum. Like it's not every beat, but like the bass is definitely like the most consistent thing. But all of those kick hits, like when they syncopate right over top of the bass guitar, it's like, yeah, I mean, you have like these four instruments that are basically all just getting onto the same page, which I find fascinating from an artistic standpoint, that we were all in this space of like, man, what we really are craving is just like connection and belonging, because we're just feeling so strung out and isolated. And then you write something that like musically is just like connected, and like
Mm-hmm.
belongs together. Man, that's awesome.
But lyrically, it's. I think when most people hear this song, they don't think of somebody coming home from a string of gigs, right? They think of somebody working the night shift, or you know, not even that. It's just somebody working long hours. I don't think that it it evolves. It brings people together the same way that you're describing the music, communicating that sort of cohesiveness.
Mm.
I don't think that you think of any special situation. You don't think of a lead singer of a band when you're thinking of the perspective of those lyrics.
That's good, dude.
Yeah, I love that.
Y'all
I
are
love
deep.
Oh, what other aspects of the song? What other questions do you guys want to dig into at this point? Because I will say, people online are asking what you guys are up to, so we're gonna leave some space for you guys to give an update at the end.
When you first wrote lyrics to that song, how quickly were you turning that around? It felt like it was like overnight. I gave you that song and the lyrics were finished. Did you feel like you wrote a lot, edited the lyrics as much?
I'm pretty sure I wrote that song pretty nearly in one pass in the van on the drive back from somewhere. That's how I remember it. I don't remember sitting like pontificating it a lot. It was one of those things where like, it was one of those moments where, I mean, as we were just talking about, the music was speaking something so clearly, and I was trying to tap into it, and it just so happened to help that I was like physically going through it at the same time. So it wasn't, it was really just a matter of being present at that point. Like, the music is saying this. I'm literally living it out right now. I just need to like put words to it. So we probably adjusted some lines and moved some things around as we worked through the song, but I think like the basic lyrics of the tune were written just in that one drive home. Because I remember I wrote them in my journal, and I was like listening to the pre-production like on my phone, and I was like, okay guys, check this out. And then like I kind of like sang through it as we were driving back home or whatever. I think that was this song. No, I'm 100% sure. Yeah, that was this song. That was
All
this
right.
tune.
Good deal. So many van rides.
So many van rides. So many.
They all just blend together.
Well, what's interesting about that though is there weren't very many times that I wrote in the van.
That's
So
true.
I think
you were often working, at least on the way to the gig, and then trying your best to sleep on the way home from the gig. I mean, and then every lane changed because those benches went side to side, not front to back. Remember how much time we spent thinking about our next ride?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So much.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
I learned so much about the value of sleep those years. You know,
Bro.
and you guys were years ahead of me on that, especially when children became involved.
Cheers.
But I just didn't take it seriously, and yeah, we didn't get much sleep. We got very irregular sleep and never good sleep.
That was the thing, you know. You're right, because all the sleep experts say like rhythm, right? Like rhythm is the most important thing. And it's really easy to like that until you've lived with arrhythmic sleep for years. I personally did not realize how much damage that had done, like mentally and physically and emotionally, those like 5 years, certainly 5 years of like arrhythmic, inconsistent, inadequate sleep. And it took a year, probably 12 to 18 months of like being home and being on a consistent rhythm before I could like recognize. I was like, oh, this is what it's like to have a brain that works. You know?
Can I have a brain that works too? That'd be great. Yeah. There was enough of those. I mean, we got busy enough, especially in our second and third year as a band, that I think, Phillip, you kind of took the lead with just shifting your schedule. And I don't know, like once Falcon came along, I don't know if that was able to, I don't think you were able to really keep that. And but that's what I tried to do as well, is like I would purposely stay up till 3 a.m. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, sometimes, just because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be up till 3 a.m. And it was not great. It was like, yeah, it made sense to not have to throw my sleep schedule back and forth, because that's what I was trying to do initially, and it was awful, but it still wasn't great.
Yeah. I mean, night shift is brutal, even when you can do it consistently.
Right.
But yeah, once Falcon came along, I remember the trip Melissa and we went to Puerto Rico. I think we took like a week off gigging, or a week and a half, something like that. Falcon was real young. And like one whole evening of that trip was Melissa having a come to Jesus conversation with me that I couldn't like go to bed at 4 a.m. and sleep till noon every day with like a 1-year-old. And I was like, okay.
That must have been a lot of fun. I can see that going.
Fortunately,
really
we were in
well.
Puerto Rico, so then the next day we were on the beach, and
It's easy to mellow out after that.
Yeah. Well, why don't you guys take a few minutes? David, let's start with you. So it's been 7 years, almost 7 years. What has transpired? What are you up to now? What are you doing?
I am technically a farmer. That's my full-time job now. I primarily vegetables, but we have 24 sheep, including lambs, and probably 120 to 150 chickens throughout the year. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, seasonal vegetables. So we do a membership program where we deliver a box of vegetables from May through October to anybody that signs up at the beginning of the season. Um, and yeah, so I'm significantly more country than I ever was when I was in the Phillip Fox band.
That's amazing.
Oh, you know what?
I don't know though. You went from modern country to actual country.
Right, right. Phil Fox Band was a gateway drug, and now I live in the country.
Love
Yeah,
it.
Oh, that actually I'd never like made that whole connection. That's hilarious. That's
it's,
amazing.
yeah. I would have
Gosh.
never thought when I first joined the band. I would have never thought 10, 15 years down the road, I will be living this life.
You'd be sitting on a live stream saying, "Hi, I'm
Ye-
David and I'm a farmer." Like,
Right.
yes.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
I
Yeah.
don't-
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
You seem very happy in it. So, if Phillip Fox Band offered you that in any way, not that certainly we can take credit for it, but like if we encourage that in any way, then that makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I do. Um, no, no music professionally. I still play guitar every day, probably. But yeah, that takes up most of my time.
Awesome. And did you mention you guys run a CSA off your farm?
Yeah.
Do you,
Yeah. So it's a membership. Morckel Meadows is the name of the farm. It's a membership-based program where people invest at the beginning of the year and then they're paid back through uh, home deliveries. And we haven't done farmers markets for the past 2 years, but we're considering whether we want to mix in farmers markets or restaurants. And
There
it's
we
kind of
go.
felt like we've been learning how to do vegetables, livestock professionally as opposed to just on a small homesteading scale. We've been figuring out what the appropriate scale is to justify all the time that we're spending and primarily grow our own food. That's the whole objective is how do we figure out how to grow our own food and how many people can we support along the way with our small farm because it's only 6 acres. Um, but also how many people do we need to bring along to justify everything that we're doing.
sure.
So it's
If people want to follow that journey, where was the best place for them to go online?
Morckel Meadows, Instagram at Morckel Meadows. My wife takes really great photos of the farm. Um, so that's probably the best place to go. MorkelMeadows.com is our website.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome, dude.
thanks. What are you doing, Jay?
I'm a full-time dad, and I live off of my wife and her earnings. No, I no. So right after Phillip Fox Band ended, I went on the road with another band out of Columbus and played cello for them, toured with them for 2 years. And then Ezra was born. He's our third and final child, Lord willing. We have three boys, so we, especially now that I stay at home primarily, like, yeah, it's a lot. But it's the school year's going, so the mornings are a little bit stressful, afternoons are a little bit stressful, but for the most part, it's good. It's fun. The kids are great, and I've gotten to do a lot of cool things with them, coaching some sports teams, and at least for the past 2 years, I've been able to be a musician more so than the previous years in COVID and all that, as I was working for my church as media coordinator. So yeah, it's just I'm starting to get busier, especially with the holidays coming up. Playing cello, playing some bass guitar, doing a lot of traveling this year, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's basically it. Being dad and playing a few gigs each month, and it's fun. I actually, you know what? I didn't even tell you guys. I probably should have in retrospect, but I actually put on a concert in February. I haven't put on a classical concert of any kind of my own, like doing since my senior recital of college. Like, you know, I don't even want to say how long ago. It's been so long, but it went really well. Like, I was really happy with it. Um, we used it as a platform to raise money for. There's a great organization in Troy called Partners in Hope. So we were able to raise $4,000 through donations. Some of them corporate, most of them private, and yeah, that was a big deal. Sorry, guys, I kind of blew it. It was also my first one, so I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. I don't want to like tell everybody in my life about it, you know. So next one, I will make sure you guys get the news well in advance. Hopefully, you guys can make the trek out wherever it's happening, and so
Yeah,
that's what I've been up to, playing music,
that's
being
awesome.
dad.
And you said you didn't you just say you're going out of town to play bass for someone?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I believe it was 2019. I really hit it off with this singer-songwriter Justin Gambino. He's out of Texas. His thing is it's like contemporary Christian, but it's like more acoustic based, and he likes to hire out cellists when he can, when the budget allows. So a cellist friend of mine through the Lima Symphony said, "Hey, this is not really what I do, but I thought of you." So, you know, that kind of connected us, and we just, you know, things just clicked, and we've just played a few shows here and there each year, and he's bringing me out for a gig this coming weekend, so that's pretty cool.
Do you get to wear a spacesuit while you play the cello with this guy?
No spacesuits.
No spacesuits this time. Okay, all right.
Nothing fancy.
That was the.
Though,
that was
to
the.
be fair, I
band.
never did get to wear the spacesuit. I went from like bomber jacket, sweating my britches off, to full tails tuxedo, sweating my britches off. You know, it was a good time.
Yeah, man. I remember. I think I saw you guys when you did a stop in Pittsburgh at some point.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at everything you guys were doing, and I was like, "Did we used to work this hard? Because this seems like an awful lot of work."
Yeah, you said you looked at this production, your palms just started sweating. You're just like, this is so much. And to be fair, you were absolutely right. Like for bands of their size, they were doing above and beyond in terms of production. And so, yes, it was more work than they had personnel for. I'm just put it to you that way.
Got it.
So you were not wrong.
Oh, man. So good to talk with you guys.
Likewise, Phillip, what have you been up to though?
What have I been up to? Yeah, so
besides writing songs and Patreon, that's why we're here.
Yeah. I mean, this whole Patreon experiment, you know, shout out to my patrons.
Woo.
You know, when we ended the band in 2017, I mean, I was just like, what does this mean for me? Like, you know, this is like one of the gifts I've been given. And I'll never just stop writing, because I'd be like, stop breathing. But I mean, I have a choice about whether I share what I write with the world, you know? But like I had mentioned earlier, like just the sheer exhaustion from running the band, being in the band for 6 years, I needed time when it was over. And so about a year in, you know, I felt like, you know, writing had been a cathartic part of the healing process. And I felt like it was time to try just seeing how I could put music out in a space where it's practically worthless. not practically, I mean basically. Actually worthless.
Does that mean I'll get my money back?
Kind of. I mean, you know, and I don't know if you guys remember Hayes Carl. Like, he was a songwriter that we listened to for inspiration at one point. And I had been supporting him on Patreon for a couple years. And he was using Patreon as a way to sort of like demo songs and get feedback from fans, and also like make some monthly income while he was like prepping for another album. And so I was like, this Patreon thing, maybe this could be it. Maybe this gives me like a reason to like write and record and like, you know, actually put the music out there into the world. Cause there was no way I was just going to put it on Spotify and let it sink into the abyss of anonymity again. I just wasn't going to do that. And you know, within the first year, there was like 20 of you that said, you know what, for a lot of you, it was even more than like you'd pay per month for a Spotify subscription, but you believed in what I was doing and, you know, supported me and jumped on these live streams and we interacted. And so, man, that was 6 years ago. I mean, we're coming up on 6 years in April of 2024. And along that way,
you've been able to release music consistently that entire time.
It's been 60. This is the 62nd song.
Dude,
wow.
In that time.
That's incredible.
So some of those are, you know, just like scratch recordings, like I call them sketches. It's just a guitar and vocal kind of a thing. And then, you know, more than half of them, I think there's probably 30, 35, maybe 40 of them that are fully produced, just like this one. And, you know, I've worked with some different studio musicians. I've recorded some of them at different places in town. And over time, you know, built up my studio here to where I'm able to do whatever I need to do here. And then kind of like we did with this song, do remote session work with other musicians and do that kind of back and forth creatively, and end up with, you know, this fully produced tune. So, yeah, that's been musically and artistically, that's been like the output for me for the last 6 years. And, you know, for the longest time, I think one of the biggest lessons for me from Phillip Fox Band was that the gain in energy, like net energy for me is writing and recording, and performing is like an energy drain. So like I leave with less than I came with, and you know, that's fine. It's still an offering, and I still perform from time to time. But performing my music just felt like really, I just didn't want to do it very often. I wanted to spend more time recording. But about a year ago, I just missed, there's something special that happens when you're with other human beings in a space and you're like making music together. And I know you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I missed that. And I'm making the story way too long, but 31 West out in Newark, they were doing an Eagles tribute show, and John Ocker, who you guys might know, like messaged me about it and was like, hey, like we're doing this thing, you know, it's going to be like everyone jump in on a song kind of a deal. Would you want to jump in on a song? And I don't know if you guys remember, but the Eagles and me are just like, that's my favorite. Like Desperado's the reason I ever wanted to make records in the first place. And so I messaged him and Tom back, and I was like, guys, like I will do whatever. Like I want to be as involved in this project as possible. So they made me an honorary member of the band for that show. And I was like,
nice.
I was the second guitar on all the tunes and doing all the backing vocals, which there's so many backing vocals on every song. And then, you know, I sang lead on a few of the tunes, and that was just like, it felt so good. And I met a few people at that show, and one of them a couple months later messaged me and he was like, hey, I'm thinking of putting together a Tom Petty project. That's kind of like what we did at 31 West, but like we would do a few shows a year. Like we're not going to get crazy with it. We're all in the same stage of life, but like if we played 4 or 5 times a year, like that would be super fun. And so I joined Full Moon Fever. We started that band beginning of this year, and we played 3 shows this year. And it's been super
Perfect.
Fun. It's been super fun, dude. Like
Yeah.
everybody in that band's a pro. Like, in fact, a lot of them toured way more than we did, which is just nuts. And like they all bring something to the table. They all learn their parts. We all show up and we just play like Tom Petty tunes, which are awesome. You know, like there's not a bad Tom Petty tune.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good time, man. So if any of my
Are
full
you sharing a van?
What?
Are you sharing a van?
No, we've only done that might be one of those moments where I'd have to pray up before I step back into a van with a bunch of people. I'm not sure what would come to the surface in that moment.
You're like, I don't know if I want to hitch my wagon to these people. They're like, I should drive separately. It's gonna be late. I might want to leave and go to sleep early.
Or just the smell. Can you still smell the van if you close your eyes? Can you still smell it?
Oh yeah. Yep.
It's-
You can still see the insides of the trailer and ratchet straps for days and so many. I mean, I feel like this could turn into a podcast of just bad gig stories and like things that happened, you know? If we could dig up our enough memories, like we've got a show. Like what in the world? So or here you go. Here, while we're on the subject of starting podcasts,
okay.
here's what
All
we
right.
do. As veteran musicians, we talk about, you know, things that you shouldn't do. Bad gigs, bad promoters, bad venues, bad transportation.
There's enough of us out there.
Just
like,
basically don't do what we did at all, really.
I don't even know. I mean, I haven't had this opportunity, so I don't know. Maybe in the moment something else would happen. But if like some 20-something came up today and were like, "Hey man, like just getting started with my band. Like, what advice do you have?" I don't even know. I wouldn't even know how to tell somebody to navigate. Like I don't know what advice I could possibly provide on how to navigate being in a band.
Well, you would be the one to ask. I mean, we did a pretty good job comparatively.
From
You
a
know,
business
in terms
side,
of
you're saying.
professionalism, in terms of professionalism, in terms of like, if a band was going to have an entertaining podcast, we were pretty tame comparatively.
That's true. That's true. We didn't get that wild.
Which does blow my mind. Like, so a lot of the guys in the Full Moon Fever, like they toured like a decade before us because they were just a little bit older and they were doing it like when they were younger. And just hearing how different the music industry was just in that decade shift, that you could still be a band that was just kind of like, yeah, and then we got lost and then we, showed up for the gig, whatever. And, did this and that and like all these crazy shenanigans and antics. And not that these guys weren't consummate professionals, like they were great musicians and all that stuff. But like, there's a big difference between being a great musician and like knowing how to run a band, Yeah. And so it just blows my mind that like how well we ran our band and it like still just like didn't seem to matter. And like just fast forward, or if we could have rewound a decade, like it seemed like it mattered a lot less. Like how well you actually seemed to run things. There just was more of everything. So there was, I guess you could be sloppier. I don't know.
Could you come up with an answer to what advice you would give?
The thing is, like trying to put myself in today's shoes, like I feel like we navigated, I mean, at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, like we really navigated the industry at the time and did the best that we could with what was available then. And it just came down to like, well, we sound the way we sound and not enough people, you know, to make it sustainable, were into that. And I can live with that. I'm okay with that. But like today, there's even less of what there was then. And it's all like, I mean, TikTok and algorithms and like Spotify playlists and dude, I don't know, man. Like I don't know. I mean, what I do know is you can be a phenomenal musician and that in and of itself does not matter. Like that whole thing that I'm sure you guys heard this when you were learning to play music and stuff too. It was like, and I know for a fact people told us it when we went to Nashville. They're like, man, just be so good, people can't ignore you. It's like, and then all you got to do is go to Nashville and realize there's like 3,000 people in this town, just this one city, that are so good they shouldn't be ignored. And yet 2,985 of them are being ignored. So like, what are you supposed to do with that, you know? I just don't know. I have no idea what that advice would be to someone. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I could like couch it in the like, well, just make the music you love, man, and then you win either way. But
one thing I think is, I don't know if you guys have watched Yellowstone, but the first episode, I was like, oh, I wish this show would have come out while Phillip Fox Band was,
yes, that would have been amazing.
Oh my God, where was this show?
That's a show that Ryan Bingham was on like several episodes, exactly. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the main characters in that show.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe we just needed to go to Hollywood or something. I don't know, man. Although I have to say,
it's like you know, one of the things that you made very clear is like Texas country is not like Nashville country, and that there are artists who exist within that state primarily and make a living. So like maybe we should have moved to Texas. Not that I want to, but like, you know what I mean? Like I felt like we would have fit in better than Columbus, Ohio. And I love Columbus. Go Buckeyes. But it's just they weren't vibing. That was not predominantly what we were about, and it just all of the original bands in the Columbus scene at the time, you know, it was all smooth, poppy, modern stuff, not sort of like gritty. We play instruments, you know, and have beards, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, although it's interesting, like, I don't know where, like, if you think about that last batch of songs that we were writing, I mean, that was more of like, I mean, that wasn't even like country anymore. It was that like we were in that like rootsy. There's a band I'm thinking of, and I'm spacing on their brain because I'm spacing on their name. It's after 9:30 at this point. I don't know. There's like this whole genre, and I'm not even sure how you like get into it, where it's like it's not Americana, it's not country, it's not roots, but then these bands have like these huge followings. I'm spacing. You used to listen to some of their records at the time, David. Like Dawes is one of the bands I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, like one of those bands. Like, where do they fit? You know, but like people dug them. And that I felt like the stuff we were writing at that time was like, was ending up more in that genre. Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah. You know, part of what I was thinking at that time was, like I was saying, like simplifying what I was doing instead of everything being about like big solos. You know, thinking about more of a group sound and more of more simplicity. I don't know necessarily why I was going that way, other than the kind of getting bored with the way that we had been doing it, where it was just like David plays lead parts.
Yeah.
You know, it was
Well, there was
wanting to
definitely,
experience.
yeah, there was life there. I mean, we had done the same thing. I think that was part of. I mean, that's the pro and con of performing that much is you just wear things out that much more quickly, and we developed skills like that we would have otherwise. So I think that was kind of the natural progression of where we were going, was like, you don't have to flex as much when you know you can flex, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's yeah, when you've have proven something to yourself, and you don't feel the need to prove it anymore. You can just you well, that was actually, now that you mention it, we were trying to be really purposeful as we were writing what would be the third record, to emphasize a little bit of simplicity, but also space. Like, I remember that being an emphasis in discussion, where it's like, we're not going to busy things up just to, busy things up. It was like, that was sort of the direction we were drifting. It was like, we need to, let things breathe more. And that was cool.
Yeah,
We did
sure.
Last on the Stage. Remember that tune?
Mm-hmm.
That was
Uh-huh.
very space
Oh
oriented.
man.
And then
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
we also had like some really swampy ones too, where it was really more of the southern rock vein. So it's not like we completely were departing from that sound. Like we just we were talking before this started, Possum Creek. I just did it. Possum Creek, not Opossum Creek. But yeah, like that tune was just so like earthy and riffy, and there was one that never got completed. I don't know that we even had lyrics to it, but remember that like that groove I came up with, and then down 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 down,
Oh
and then
yeah.
That was a
David
good group. Yeah.
David helped like put in the like the verse groove, and then that was like the turnaround. Dude, that was straight fire.
Yeah,
That
I
is,
forgot about that one.
yeah. That was, I guess that was the one thing that's something we were experiencing that I mean, most modern bands will just never get the opportunity to experience. It was the thing that happened in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's like you become a band where like the sum of
Right.
your the sum of the band becomes more than your parts, you know? And I think that was something like we had put in the time with each other musically, and like we were leaning into that for that third record. And there's just, yeah, there's something like, I feel it even with the production of, these last 60 plus tunes, right? Like the more I can get other people involved in that song, the more rich that song becomes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we were at toward the end when we were working on those tunes. This one in particular was just like, there was a richness in the songwriting and in the production of those songs, that I just don't know that there's a way to replicate that. Like a plugin's never going to do that. Loops aren't going to give you that. Cause it's like, there's these real time human decisions that are being made. And it's like all the way down to like physically when you're playing a physical instrument, right? The way you approach your instrument, that changes. And so we were all
Yeah.
informing one another. Yeah. I mean, when I think about it, cause like,
Reminds me of when
oh, go ahead, man. Go
go
ahead.
ahead, sorry.
No, please.
Um, it reminds me of when we were talking about how we worked so hard on blending our voices, and
Mm-hmm.
the idea that, oh, well, you don't want to solo that track, you don't want to hear what they're doing because it sounds horrible by itself.
Yeah.
It was like in the end we finally figured out that it's okay if they solo your track. It's okay that it sounds not great, right? Like early in, it was like I got to sound as good as possible, and that was both for me. It was in terms of my writing, in terms of my tone, in terms of the performance. It was about what can I personally contribute, and rather than like where do I fit, um,
Oh
even
snap!
if it means
Yeah.
not being as perfect myself. If you solo the track, it's okay that it doesn't sound exactly like it sounds in your head, or it sounds um, in an ideal scenario. I think that's where we got, was that compromise of um, that's definitely, I think, what was changing about my approach when we were doing this songwriting. And you mentioned Last on the Stage, and I remember that having the same sort of just a simple chord progression is what it all starts with. And I remember thinking like, how do I make these chords sound different than just an E chord? And so it was like, how do I make the lowest sounding
Mm.
chord get underneath Phillip? I'm always like on top of Phillip, right? Tonally and in terms of chord voicings. I remember thinking like, okay, is there any space between Jonathan and Phillip? So it was thinking that way instead of thinking like, oh boy, here comes my solo.
Yeah.
No, you know,
It's shredding
um,
time.
and then not knowing a role during verses. Do I just have pretty sounding uh, arpeggios and stuff in the background, or do I have constant leads? And I think that busied up, that misunderstanding or immaturity, you might even call it, of not knowing um, what to do when it's not just solo time. You know, at the bars, I know what to do. It's like I just kind of sit back and chill, and then when it's solo time, solo, and then sit back and chill and let. But when it was about writing, it was a new experience for me where it was like I said, like figure out where I fit instead of figure out how do I perform as best as possible.
Man, I love that. I love that. Yeah, man. My brain is like splitting off in a bunch of directions. It makes me think of a lot of different things. Mostly, I think there is something that comes, like, I mean, you're talking about maturity, you're talking about humility. It's the ego dies in service to the whole. I don't know. Maybe we wouldn't have gotten there if we hadn't struggled so much as a band. Like when everything's going well and everyone's telling you how awesome you are, like you don't really have to dig deep and sort of reinvent. And I think in a lot of the music industry, it just sort of feeds that like you're a rock star, you're awesome, you go play that solo, and wank for all the pretty ladies, in the front row, kind of a thing.
Oh God.
But to do that, to step back and think about the music, and like, what are we making together? I just don't hear a lot of that. I mean, I'll be honest, like my personal listening, I just feel super disenfranchised from a lot of music. I mean, there's still some gems out there, but it's really hard to like try to find, new artists that are doing like things that I find like inspiring or interesting, or, that feels like it has that, where they've thought about what's the thing that's being made on the back end, and not just like what are the fun sounds or the cool riffs, or like, that kind of thing, or how
Are
well can I
you
sing.
are you frustrated with how difficult it is to find those people, or are you frustrated with the fact that they don't exist like they?
Here's the thing. I'm sure they're out there. I mean, they have to
Yeah.
be, right? There's like what?
Are they doing it? Do they have Patreons? Do they have, like, and how do you find them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Occasionally, like, because I'm still on Instagram, occasionally I'll come across an artist on there that's like, oh man, this person's doing something like interesting. I found this woman, young woman. She's like in her early 20s. Her name's Joby. I don't know how you say her last name. Riccio, Riccio. She like popped up on Instagram a couple years ago, and I've been like following her. And now she's opening for Jason Isbell, which is like, oh, okay. And she's very much in that kind of vein, But I guess I'm talking also about like this band thing that we're talking about. Like Melissa got me to watch. Oh man, names are hard. It was a show was on Netflix. It's about a band in the 70s based off of a novel. Anybody?
Spinal Tap.
I can picture what you're talking about.
It's got the female, like the two lead singers. The one's male, one's female. Josie.
It's on the tip of my tongue too. I don't know, but yeah, it's something in the somethings.
Yeah. And the six. It's something in the six. Daisy Jones, and the Six. That's the show.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and what's cool about that show? I mean, I have to say, like, I watched the whole thing with Melissa, and it actually there are moments that were so real it was hard to watch. Because of have you seen it?
No.
Oh, like the interpersonal conflict in the band members. There were just times where it was like, man, this is like too real. This is like I'm literally squirming while I'm like watching this show. But the show's based in the 70s, and it's like loosely based off Fleetwood Mac. And like one of the guys from Dawes like produced most of the soundtrack, and so it's like him and all his buddies like making these songs that kind of sound like they were written by bands in the 70s. But I guess that's what I guess I got spoiled maybe by what we were doing. And I want to hear composite sounds. I want to hear human beings that came together and made something together. I guess maybe I'm putting a finer point on it.
I think that a lot of the music we're hearing has a lot of that, but for a different reason. Think about how many artists don't actually have a band that they take into the studio. There's no, you don't go to the studio for a week, for 2 weeks, a month or whatever and produce a record. No. It's an artist who has a producer, and that producer kind of sums everything up because they've got a network of studio musicians and they're all bouncing tracks back and forth, and it's all very neat and tidy, and everything can be neatly brought together in the box and then edited and made, and it's a cohesive vision for a song or even an album. And some producers are incredible with the things that they're doing, but to your point, like none of that is what used to be done. None of that is born out on the road in practices where, you're having fights with your band members and and then you're learning to be together as that unit that, people don't necessarily appreciate explicitly, but there's something special there. Right. So I don't know if that's relatable to your listening necessarily, but it feels like that's the pattern these days. It's less of we're a group and we're going to go into this studio with these ideas that we've worked out fully. It's more of like, I'm an artist because it's easier and more convenient and more affordable to be an artist. And then I have this network and a producer and an A&R person and an agent. And look, we probably would have been a lot more successful if we had gotten some help that we could have trusted, that would have done some work for us. I mean, think about how hard you worked in the first several years of our band, booking gigs for us so that we could keep David and Austin in particular just busy. That was the thing, right? We looked at the Columbus music scene Everybody was in 3 bands. Nobody was making any money. We said we're gonna stoop to playing covers, and we're gonna play all these other venues all around the city, and we're gonna make some money so that we can do what we want to do. But when we throw kids into the equation, then it's like it's not sustainable after a while. You have to have some help. But even if we hadn't started having babies, like, we still needed some help. And the people we tried to bring in, oh my God, podcast time. I'm just saying, like, I don't know how much time you guys got. Our Patreons are probably like, seriously, this isn't over yet? What is going on? But seriously, we haven't been in one space, virtually or otherwise, for 6-7 years.
Yeah. Yep.
The 3 of us, at least.
For sure.
You're welcome. Anywho, I don't know. I was a little rambly there, but I feel like that the landscape has shifted so much that we were taking this sort of almost romantic approach to what we were doing.
So would you advise
stubbornly so.
young band? Yeah, would you advise a young band to take the romantic approach? Or would you?
Yes and no.
Ooh.
I mean, if I would say yes from the standpoint of artistry and craftsmanship, but no from the standpoint of like business or career. I think about the way we had to learn to just play to the click together, or like the way we had to learn to blend our voices, or the way I had to like learn how to create a bass tone and get the right tools to do so that like would live in a place in the mix and not just fall into the modern country low tone of whatever the sound guy felt like doing with the bass on a given night. So all of those things, man, I learned so much. And then interpersonally, I learned so much. So yes and no.
Yeah.
I don't know. What would you say, David?
Yeah, it depends on the results that you want, right? Do you want to have a long, successful, sustainable career as a musician, and that's your standard? Or do you want to be an artist? Do you want to experience the road? Yeah, I don't know. If you want to be an artist, I think we did a lot of, I think we did a lot of things right, both from a business standpoint, creative standpoint. Like you said, it's just where is the opportunity for that, and the market for that, and the help for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I work for a nonprofit now, so it's kind of the business world. I mean, a lot of the same ideas overlay, and it's all. I mean, it's kind of an inverse. The business world is an inverse sort of thing, right? It's like, what's the opportunity, and then you market to the opportunity. And art just never really worked that way for me. I mean, I remember us having conversations, Jonathan, early on of like, well, we know what sells right now. We could sound like that. We could try our best to sound like that. But if we were doing that, would we even be satisfied in the end?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the upside down. It's like, what if we were still, enabled to be able to play music, full-time professionally, feeding our families sort of thing. But, we had to sound like modern pop country to do it. Like, would that even be enjoyable? And I think for you and I, Jonathan, early on, we had to wrestle with that. And I remember we agreed. We were like, well, in order to be satisfied, we have to sound like us. And so we're at least going to do that. And, if the financial success follows that, then great. If it doesn't, I think we just assumed that it would. I don't know that we really, because we did not take a metered approach to this at all. We jumped right off the cliff, right into the deep end. There was no like, what if it doesn't work? There was like, it has to work until it just didn't, and there was no way to like keep attempting to resuscitate it, you know?
Yeah, and then again, like if it would have been a different story if either we had started 5 to 10 years younger, or if we had the help that could have used. People who were booking agents, so weird. Like, I don't know. And then but that same standpoint, like, it's one thing to play a gig that pays well, right? But it's another to actually like make fans. You know, think about all those gigs we played in Chicago. Man, those crowds were great, and we didn't make a single fan.
This is true.
Oh well. Yeah, at least we made some money.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. People always ask, like, what was your favorite show you ever played? And it was like, I felt like every show we ever played was a trade-off of one kind or the other. Like the perfect show, right, is like you make a lot of money, you're there playing for your fans, and
it sounds great.
And it sounds great, right? It sounds great.
Yeah.
Like you're enjoying it. Like you're totally in the music. And like, I don't know that we ever played a show where all three of those happened. Can you think of one?
I can think of I can think of one that stands out to me.
Okay.
And I want to say it was in Tyler, Texas. Do you remember that theater we played on the college campus?
Wow.
For a bunch of college students, and oh my Lord, I was like, there's no way they're gonna be into. They're like dancing down in front and in the aisles and in their seats and like eating it up.
Well, here's the other variable, right? And it sounded good to all of us.
Yes,
right?
You're right. You're right. That was a particularly good sounding night.
That show was great. I couldn't hear anything except the bass, but that show was great.
See, I told you it sounded great.
I do remember that show in Texas, Jonathan. And I think we ended with an encore unplugged down in the crowd, right?
Yes, string bass. Oh, we wasn't talking about rain. Please tell me it wasn't talking about rain.
No, I think we did sleep. Sleep.
Sleep, I'll comfort you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do remember that show. That was a good show.
Yeah.
So it happened once. Now I have an answer for that question.
Yeah, I mean, like we played hundreds. We played like something on the order of 600 or 700 shows, either as duos, trios, or full band, and you can count on one hand the ones that were like that was special, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a lot of variables.
But you know, so many variables, right? Just like a guitar signal chain. Like, is the power going to be good tonight? Are my cables going to work tonight?
I have nightmares all the time of being on the stage and not being able to get my guitar to work.
Oh,
just plugging it in over and over, messing with a pedal, messing with my amp. The band is just going on. My solo's coming up, and I can't get the sound to come out. So it happens all the time.
You still have those nightmares?
It's my go-to anxiety nightmare, for sure.
Oh my God, it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have anxiety dreams like that. With not actually. I don't think Phillip Fox band, but the other one. Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I can't find my tuxedo, or like we're on stage and this actually happened a whole bunch. Where like something failed, and it was like, okay, the show just stopped, and we're being told the two string players, the violinist and the cellist, are being told, play something. Okay, let me get on that for you. Let's improvise in front of 15,000 people. Let's do it. Let's go.
In the dark, right? As they're resetting
in the dark.
As they're resetting the lights and patches, and yes,
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So those are, yeah, I can totally relate. And Philip, do you remember early on, like there was one show where like my bass guitar just stopped working altogether, like the preamp died. It ended up having to go back to San Luis Obispo to get refitted. I don't know. You probably wouldn't remember that. That's
I mean, I'm
bass
remembering
problems.
multiple shows at this point where from my perspective,
So
that's what happened.
many shows.
All I know is the bass is gone, and then I'm that just play something person, you know.
Yep. Sorry.
Well, no, I mean
That was when I learned I needed to have a second guitar, right? Like you have to have a backup.
so many
And then
backups.
you found me that 4-string. Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If you have one, you have none. If you have two, you have one.
Oh man. Hey guys, guess who's on the live stream right now?
Steve Fox.
Oh wow.
Lindsay Dernberger.
Oh my God! What's up, Lindsay?
Hey Lindsay. Oh man, Lindsay was like the best merch girl of all time. She was like merch queen. Merch girl doesn't even begin to like.
Merch Queen. Yeah.
Yeah, so many shows she came and would set everything up, tear it all down, fight off the drunk whatever dude, skeezy dudes that
Dance
would come
and
by.
sing and pass out flyers and.
Yep.
Yup.
Yeah. Wow, man, lots of memories coming back.
Oh yeah.
Man, we should do another one of these though.
I'm telling you, podcast. Everyone's got a podcast these days. Let's do it.
That's true. That's true.
Oh.
Washed up old road dogs. Would that be the name of it? Oh man.
Sarah got.
Go ahead, John.
No, you.
So talking about, how throughout the process we were coming up with our sound and the idea that there's a compromise that, okay, we're going to play all these covers, but, we have to fit in our own music. We still have to develop our own sound. But then, especially for me, the process of playing all of those different covers had such a profound effect on my sound, right? So that it's, like what is my sound by the end of this whole process? It's not my sound. I didn't even play country music before I joined the band. So that, my sound completely changed. And now I'm a farmer. So like, the whole experience.
So now you'd play awesome country music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It all changed.
Yeah.
It all changed, yeah.
Well, I mean, it was interesting. I mean, if for those of you who've been along for this Patreon ride, I mean, you listen to the 60 songs I've released over the last 5 years, and like, I mean, so many of those songs just would have never fit with Phillip Fox Band. There was just, no matter how we pivoted or switched or whatever, right? Like, there's just so many tunes that just would not have fit,
Phillip Fox Band, the Touchy Feely album.
The Touchy Feely, yeah. Yeah. I mean, so there's just, I mean, I hear you, David. Like, and this is what I've been saying, and I think maybe going back to like why I feel so disenfranchised from the newer music that's coming out is it's like, where are the spaces for people to actually figure out what their sound is? Like, where are those spaces to put out oddball songs and record, actually like flesh out and record these tunes that may or may not have a market? Like, I think what we're, even from our favorite artists, we're still only getting like a very narrow slice of like what they could make, and what they could sound like and what we could get from them. You know, I mean, I go bin diving for records, and like if it's past 1984, I just don't even buy it. Because like you can pull just about anything that was pressed on vinyl in the 70s, and man, it's weird. There's weird stuff on there. There's at least a song or two, even on like the pop records, even on like the funk records that are just like, no one would make this today. This could not be made today. No one would spend time or money on this. And it's just weird, you know? And it's like, where is that space now? Like, I think as artists, like you've got to have canvases for the weird stuff, you know?
In a way for people to find.
You gotta,
the weird.
Yeah. You get, well, so, you know, the term B-side was where all that weird stuff was, right? There's no more B-sides. In fact, there's not even any more sides. It's just people putting out singles, people dropping an album, but like you were saying, like there's not really a space for any experimental music out there in most genres, right? Yeah. Every once in a while, you'll kind of get something that is unique, from the standpoint of like, well, I don't think anybody saw Justin Bieber putting out a hit song with just him and a guitar, right? Like a super sparse texture like that for a pop icon. That's not a thing. But it wasn't anything. There was nothing about that song that wasn't like that was actually experimental. To your point, it wasn't weird. Whereas, like you were saying, yeah, you can find some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
They just took the time. I mean, and I'm not saying the weird stuff is all good, but I think it's necessary.
Well, like it's not that weird, but like the end of this song, where did that come from? Was that just a jam?
That's a great question. Where did that come from?
I don't think we like ironed out those parts right together. I think that's a jam session.
You just produced a song that was like, we don't know what to do, how to get out of this one, so let's just jam.
But it worked, That was
that
was the thing. It was instincts. We had developed instincts together.
Yeah.
Out of the weirdness. I do remember us in the pre-production room having arguments because we would strip songs down. Like we had a song and then we would strip it all the way down and be like, okay, we're not going to start this song with guitar. Like that's not going to be the thing that we fit everything else around. Like, and I remember having arguments with, why do I got to figure out the first part? Why do I got to figure out, because like that first part, like whatever would stick would be like the thing that we would then begin to like, build around.
Yeah.
And I just now remembering having arguments about like, who had to like throw the gauntlet down first on a tune.
Well, we were so used to you having something substantial, and it was, we were kind of spoiled with that for years. It was just like, how can we add to this? Not like, how do we start this?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Oh, look, man. Ben Anderson jumped on the broadcast. Ben,
yay.
My dude.
Welcome, Ben.
Yeah, man. Thank you
Great
so
job with
much.
the drums, dude.
So good. You were talking
is
about
this the same Ben.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, John.
Sorry, is this the same Ben that plays with Shinedown? Or no, Nothing More?
North to Nashville.
That's different Ben. Okay. Never mind.
I don't know. If you're making like rock and roll references, I'm lost, man. Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I met a Ben Anderson who plays drums, and I want to say he plays drums for Nothing More. For whatever reason, I confused Shinedown and Nothing More, but whatever. Moving along.
Move on.
But
you were talking. One of the things you were talking about, and I did want to bring this up now that I know that Ben is on here. Yeah, Ben actually just said, I get mistaken for him a lot. So it's not the same Ben Anderson.
Okay.
He
It's
apparently
not
knows
just-
who you're
it's not
talking
just
about.
me.
It's not just you.
All right. Okay.
But you were talking about, Jonathan, learning to play to a metronome together. And that is still one of the things that is so wild to me about music. It's like, you'd think beats per minute, like that's a scientific measurement, right? No, not at all. And like, man, you take 3 musicians and have them play the same song to the same click separately, and it's going to be like this. It's just,
Yep.
So one of the things that I learned early on with Ben Anderson is that dude has more precise time than me, certainly, and more than anyone I have recorded with. So when I have Ben Anderson on a song, he records first. And it's crazy to me. Like, I will when I'm recording my scratch stuff to send to him for him to record over, I'm okay missing notes. I'm okay being out of key because that stuff doesn't bother him. And I'm trying as hard as I can to like be in time. And then I hear him play in time, and I'm like, what the crap, dude? Like, I'm so all over the place. I'm like, I'm ahead of the beat. I'm behind the beat. I'm ahead of the beat. I'm ahead of the beat. I'm behind the beat. I'm behind the beat. But when you have a group of musicians that move together with the metronome, that's one of the things that's so special about those old recordings, like from the 70s and 80s, 60s even, is they're ahead of the beat together, and then they're behind the beat together, and they're those push and pull rhythms. That's actually, in our modern recording era with everything locked to the grid and quantized, like, it's incredibly difficult to replicate that. And there's just like a life to those tunes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like
they try to humanize, they use a humanizer to try to add imperfection.
Exactly.
The old humanizer. I love that app.
Humanize the machines.
Do you remember the plugin that Joe used to use with backing vocals in particular to lock in? I think it was just consonants and stuff. Just like to your point, to basically bring all of those. I forget the term. Just all to the exact same spot, so it's like crisp.
Mm-hmm.
There's a plugin he used for that. I was like, oh, yeah, wow, that's amazing. You mean you don't just want us to like get another take? No, I got you, bro.
Yeah.
We could just do it right. No, I got you.
Well, even doing it right without
ninja.
Yeah, even doing it right without that is different, right? It feels different.
Yeah.
Like those like slight imperfections that create like additional harmonics. It's just that kind of stuff that, like, particularly, and again, I don't know, man, we're going crazy tonight, but I love it. Knowing that safety net is there to catch you, like, there are certain things you just don't even try, like in the recording experience or like as a musician or something like that. Like, again, you don't get as weird as you would with it, because you're like, the machine's going to fix that on the back end, so let's just move on to the next thing, And so this isn't even like I'm in defense of like becoming excellent. This is like in defense of like just knowing that you have to put something on there that's going to sound good at the end, and the machine isn't going to help you. You have to try different things than you would otherwise when the machine is just going to fix it for you at the end,
Right.
Yeah, and lack of perfection is what catches people's ear now, when everything else is clean and direct.
Yeah.
You think.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we deal with that even in the LifeWise where I work. Like, it's this whole thing with social media. Like, if the stuff you put on social media looks too perfect, people just go past it. Like,
interesting.
People are actually more drawn to like these handheld kind of grainy, out of focus, in focus, like phone reels, shot with your like front camera than if it looks like it's perfectly lit and set up in a studio and like, because we're just like we're so done with perfection. We're just like perfection, in like the 80s particularly. That's when in the studio they were like, we're gonna push the limits of perfection from a human standpoint. But shoot, fast forward 20 years and like when everything is perfect, then like the life is sucked out of everything, and it's not interesting anymore.
I'm telling you guys, podcast.
So Ben's chiming in here. Oh man, I guess Ben should be our first guest for this podcast. He said,
Yes, yeah.
My attempt to maintain some sense of quote unquote purity is that I never chop and punch in when recording. I only record, send full takes.
Wow.
Oh,
Dude,
show
that's
off. Okay,
I mean,
dude.
hearing your finished products, Ben, like being on the receiving end of them and engineering them, that blows me away, man.
To be fair, I only had two punch-ins on my part, so I'm almost there. But I was only playing one instrument. He's playing like 9. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He says because there is an energy magic there. And I think that's true, man. I recently actually the song I'm going to release next month. This was me getting weird because even in like having all of the freedom to do whatever I want every month, like you get in your own production cycles and you're like, well, I know how to record guitars. I know how to write this song. I know how to lay down these backing vocals, and it just becomes this way you do it. And so then it all sounds that way, And so I intentionally wrote the song from scratch while recording it without a progression. I mean, I literally just like started laying down bass and like moved with some changes. And I said, okay, that's the format of this song. And now I'm going to turn a mic on and I'm just going to start singing to it. And I'm just going to plug in a Rhodes patch and I'm just going to start playing piano. And I only let myself go through it 4 times. I have no idea I literally don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's coming out. And then I went back and I looked at every one of these, like basically impromptu performances and tried to make sense out of like 8-bar, 12-bar, 16-bar sections out of each of these. And like the phrasing from one to the next, vastly different, just like incompatibly different, actually. Because when you're not like, oh, I'm just going to punch in here for these 4 bars, but I'm letting this thing breathe for an entire take. And I'm like, I like don't have really defined rails on where I'm going. Like phrasing just gets really weird and in some super interesting ways. And so what I ended up doing was just like taking, like, I basically had to just like find quarters of the song that like where the phrasing like flowed and made sense. And like pieced this kind of like 80s cologne commercial together. It's weird, man. It is a weird song, and I learned a ton while making it.
That's what I hear the producer for Counting Crows used to do. Just let them go and just piece these sections together. I guess this is the song now. I guess.
Interesting.
I totally made all that up.
Oh, for real? I mean, I would have bought it for some of their tunes for sure.
Counting Crows. Dude, like talk about stream of consciousness. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like Ryan Adams, right? Is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, after you've gone into the studio and recorded like 3 full albums that way, maybe you take a little bit of time and think about what you're going to do before you walk in. I mean, just to mix it up, Like, I'd love to see what does Ryan Adams do if he thought about a song for 12 minutes before he recorded it,
Oh, womp womp.
Oh, man. Good. Yeah. Well, dude, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I feel like we could talk all night, but we are streaming. And But yeah,
we're gonna
dude,
run out of server space.
we're filling up the internet, and we need to give it a break. So the internet's overheating right now. Man, thank you guys so much for taking the time both to collaborate on this song, to text back and forth and share ideas, and take the time tonight to be on. David, is so good to talk with you again, man.
Yeah,
So
man. I haven't seen your lovely beard in so long.
Yeah, you definitely you've like. Did yours start this way? Because my like gray is just like getting kind of this weird patchiness, but yours is like so symmetrical.
It's progressing. It's all going to be gray at some point. It's just moving outward.
All right, we're gonna have a race. Although you're younger than me, so I'm already behind. Yeah. Jonathan, dude, thank you.
Can grow a beard. I still can't grow a beard. I've just got these. I got the sideburns, but I just can't.
Oh, Jonathan, man, thank you so much for recording on this tune. And man,
my pleasure.
Love you guys. I've missed you guys.
Likewise.
Yeah, we'll figure out a way to we need to have another conversation. There's just too much to talk about. So,
yep.
Thank you. I don't know. Let's see how many. There's still 6 people watching right now, just for the record.
My
so
gosh.
I can't say they're the same 6 people that started, but to those of you who are on here, man, thank you so much for joining in to the conversation with us. Patrons, thank you for helping bring yet another song into the world. And this one in particular, that meant so much. Appreciate you. And I'll be back next month with a double release and a very special guest. So stay tuned for that. You can follow David's journey in farming at Morckel Meadows at Instagram. Jonathan, what's the best place for them to keep up with your journey?
You can't.
You cannot.
I don't post on social media.
Jonathan's life is walled. You may not peek in.
Yeah, sorry guys. No. There's not an easy answer for that. Do me a favor and just follow Justin Gambino. He's a good dude with a great voice, and he's a good songwriter, and it's cool to be, watching his career progress. So, at Justin Gambino on the social medias.
All right.
There you go.
All right. Well, until next month, everyone, love you all, and we'll see you real soon.